Welcome back to another episode of Kate and Isaiah Living Large. I'm Isaiah.
And I'm Kate.
And on this episode, we have special guest Nigel. For those of you longtime listeners, you may have heard his name a few times. Those of you watching on YouTube, you may even recognize his face from some things that you've been to. Who knows?
Just being there.
Being there. Thank you for joining us, Nigel.
Thank you very much for having me, you guys.
I'm super excited to have you on. Super excited to have this conversation. And those may recognize now we have a third mic since we have guests back. Yay! I thought it'd be a super special episode to have Nigel as our very first guest back. But before we get into our topic with Nigel, anything you want to talk about there, Caitlin?
I'm just super happy that Nigel's here. I would like to note that Nigel is actually responsible for Isaiah and I being friends. We don't like to give him a lot of credit for things because he barely remembers. But I met Isaiah through Nigel, and then Nigel ditched us all, and Isaiah and I started this podcast.
Yeah.
What I usually do. Just I unite people and then abandon them to figure it out on their own.
Yeah. No, all jokes aside, Nigel's a good friend to both of us, better friend to Isaiah, and and super pumped to have him here. I don't think I have anything in particular to bring up right now. How about you, Isaiah?
No, I mean, you did just do an amazing show you talked about earlier, which I...
Oh, yeah. No, I had 2 comedy gigs last week on Monday and Wednesday, and then I've got more coming up. I keep seeming to roll into them, but I think I mentioned on our last episode that I have a Punchlines gig, which is super exciting on February 10th. It's a local showcase. You can buy tickets online through Punchlines for February 10th, and totally worth doing. There's other comics that are really excellent. And I'll be there, and and I think it'll be a really good time. And then in the meantime, check out all kinds of shows. You have no idea how much comedy happens in St. John and the province of New Brunswick right now, and you should support it because otherwise it won't exist.
No, and I love the comedy scene in St. John. Mostly because it's where I'm at. I don't travel around watching the shows, but it's kind of neat because you can kind of stumble into great comedic talent that's just at a random event. And I went and saw you.
You did.
Which
is more than Isaiah's done.
Yeah. Well, it was the last night of McGill's that we never knew was the last night of McGill's. And it was awesome. I had a great time, and I went down there just to watch you. It's just because I'm such a great friend.
Much better friend than I am.
Such a great friend. And I remembered it was on memory. And but I stayed for a couple other comedians that were there, and they were really good. And I'd never heard of them before. And it was a great time. So support local comedy for sure.
Heck yeah. We have some great shows that just randomly happen here and there. Pretty awesome. But what's new? What's up, Nigel? Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. Long time lurker. First time guest. No, I'm super happy to be here. Caitlin and I at that comedy show. That's right. It's all full circle. I pitched an idea with Caitlin at the comedy show, and then months went by. And then you get the random message that's like, hey, you want to be on our show? And I was like, what are we going to talk about? Caitlin's like, you're a jerk. You literally mentioned it before. So
you came up with it.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to talk about
old men and how they feel like they can pretty much say anything to you. And
about the generational way in which men treat weight, even on people who don't carry extra weight. So I would argue that Nigel doesn't carry a lot of extra weight, if any, but how it's just kind of a systemic thing that it seems to be okay. And I've heard it in my own family with my dad and his brothers and my cousins and stuff, where they're like, oh, putting on a few there, right?
100%, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's something that I don't know if it's an age thing or if it's a guys being comfortable mentioning things to guys in a passing way, but I've always, well, I won't say always, but up until recently have been a very slight person, but I've put on some weight, and it gets mentioned more than anything by older people that have known me through growing up. Right. So as the belly, the heater shows up, You get like, it's just a random comment. Are you putting a couple on there, Nigel? Getting a little bigger around the middle. And it's just a passing comment, but then it's like in the back of the mind there. And it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get that as well, but I get it from a certain generation, but not as much, only because I have been a bigger person for very much longer time than you.
You're more experienced.
Even though I thought I could wear your belt at one point.
I was gonna lend it to
you. That's a whole other story.
Which you've told on the podcast, but if you're gonna bring it up, you should probably do a quick Coles notes
recap. I was going to an interview, I think it was,
it was
for
a job
something,
interview.
And I really needed a belt, and I thought, hey, I know someone who has a belt. And thought I could borrow Nigel's belt. Now, at the time, I was probably like a 32, 34 waist, and you were probably like, what, a 27?
We're not going to get down to sizes.
No,
you were a couple belt sizes.
I was definitely a couple belt sizes.
We would have had to get 2 of my belts. Yes. And that's fine. But the best part was the message, can I borrow your belt? I have a job interview. And I was like, I guess.
Yeah, I did not think that one through. But yeah, no, I know. And you get some comments when you were, do we say you're a friend of Spider-Man?
No, I'm Moonlight as a spider figure. They can't use the actual term. I'm Spider Dude. You call me whatever you want. But I've gone to events, and a really great friend of mine runs a dress up. I don't know what we call it. What do we call it?
Well, what's the name of the actual?
I don't know. Do we do that?
Yeah, sure.
It's Magical Memories Princess Parties, where they have princesses and superheroes, and you can invite them out to your event, to birthday parties, to we do Canada Day every year.
Yeah. And
so I, over the past 2.5-ish, almost 3 years now, have owned the Spider-Man suit because no one else will wear it. So I go and do all these big events, and the last Canada Day, and as I've mentioned just before on this, I started to put on a little bit of a belly, and the Spider-Man suit is very tight fitting. So there's nothing left to the imagination. So much so, we just talked about it, I have to wear special underpants when I put it on. But the belly was prominently displayed in a photo with one of our local members of parliament. And online, some people trolled me about my belly and how Spider-Man needs to stay away from the beaver tail card.
Yes.
Yeah. So that I laughed off. I thought it was horrible online trolling, but at the same time I was like, wait a second, that sucks. that got said.
Yeah, right?
I guess this is where my question comes in. You're not a guy who's worried about or have you worried about your weight growing up? Have you worried about being too skinny? Have you just been felt comfortable in who you are?
Well, growing up, I would say, I was always referred to as the underweight, or the too skinny guy, the too light. And I think a big piece of it is everyone always assumed that I was in really great shape because I was lighter and trimmer, but I'm not really in good shape at all. Like, it's a couple of flights of stairs and I'm hurting. So, you can carry it different ways, but at the same time, I was not by any stretch of the imagination in great shape. So.
And so now, as somebody who it hasn't been a part of your overall concern being overweight at all, when somebody says that sort of thing to you, how does it make you feel?
Well, it's funny because I immediately, when reading that comment, if like that was kind of I think it was a bit of a tipping point for me. In reading, I was like, ha ha ha, somebody said that. And then I read it again. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, I looked at the picture, and then I looked at it a little bit closer. And then the next time I saw the picture, it was all I could see.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it some more, and then I was like, I should probably go do something about this. Which I'd never really thought of before. So I was like, should I go to the gym? Do I need, like, what does one do in this situation? Surprised I really didn't change anything, but
well, how about we should back this up because I think we launched right into this because we all know each other so well. But tell us a little bit about you. You're in your mid 30s, and
that's not nice of you. I'm 39. I'm pushing 40 here. Mm-hmm. But thank you. We'll call it mid 30s. That's great.
30s, and father
of 3 girls. Yeah,
and you've got a job that keeps you busy, and
yeah, there's a lot of sitting. Okay, so I can do this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. Hi, I'm Nigel. So I'm 39 years old. I've got 3 daughters. They're 5, 9, and 11. I work full time at a desk. So I manage a team of, I manage a credit union branch. So I've got, 11 people that work with me. And it's fast-paced environment, but I find I spend a lot of time in the seated position. And then outside of that, I drive kids around a lot. A lot. Very recently, and this is why I've ditched you guys, is because I've got 3 kids and I drive them around a lot. But I've got back into playing softball, but that's only during the summertime, and now it's not summertime anymore. So I don't really have any movement that is done with me, and that's kind of where I would say the past like 6 or 7 years have been a lot of that.
And that makes sense. You're like so many in our demographic where you're busy all the time, and then it's hard to fit in something extra. And for you, it's something you've never really thought of being an issue because you just exist. So when you have these moments where now tell us about an instance where somebody in your life, like, because the whole impetus of this episode is like the other men saying things. So tell us about a specific incident.
Yeah. So, a good specific incident, which would be, it's my father. He was away, lived away for years, and now lives back in Fredericton. And, we hadn't really seen each other a whole lot. And he's been back in New Brunswick now. I want to say it's been a couple of years, but when he first came back, it was one of the first things he said to me when we saw each other was, you're putting on a little belly there now, are you, Nigel? And it was like, oh yeah, it happens. I'm, 37 or 38 at the time. And it's just a passing comment, but then you remember it again, or you think about it the next time you're looking in the mirror, maybe. So
I remember a similar incident that my father had with his mother years ago. I think my dad was probably around your age, and we were visiting Tidehead, and my grandparents had just installed like a bay window in their house, in their dining room. And my grandmother looked at the bay window and then looked at my dad and was like, "Oh, Doug, you have your own bay window."
Nice one.
Yeah, which, clever.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is that kind of thing where it's like, it's not really an issue, and it does have an impact sometimes. Yeah. Is it the worst thing in the world? Probably not, but it did give you pause.
Yeah. And I don't know, because I don't think I've made comments like that, but now maybe I have. It's almost like I don't know if the person who said it ever thinks about it again, or really thought about it while saying it,
right? But
then it sticks with you after,
of course. And I don't think that same person in most of these cases would ever say that to me, for instance. I mean, one, because they don't know me, but even in a similar situation, they'd never go to a heavier person or a woman,
right,
or both in this case, and say, "Well, put on 20, did you?" And like, yeah, but because I would cry. And that's just, or I probably wouldn't. I'd probably punch them.
Yeah. Striking old people.
Yeah.
But the answer to everything.
But no, because that's just not how that would work. And this is why this is such an interesting topic, because it's one that we don't talk about a lot. And it's like, because it's in the grand scheme of people being harassed, people who are generally okay, saying, "Oh, yeah, got a little, you're going from a 32 to a 36, are we?" Or whatever that is relatively inconsequential, except it's not.
Right.
And usually it's like within your family, especially, it happens often within families, right? And it's not malicious at all. It's just it's a passing thing that someone says as a joke that maybe they don't ever think about again, like you said. But sometimes that sticks with you, right?
Yep. No, it absolutely can, and it's. I think that the point that Caitlin's made is it's not a stranger in most cases that are walking by in the street that's going to be like, meh, except online, where everyone's a stranger and no one thinks about anything that they say.
Yes.
But that's, in person, it's usually a family member or it's a close friend or it's someone that's seen you for years. And yeah, 3 years ago when you saw me to now, sure, there's definitely a difference there. If you make a comment, it's not, I don't know, is it going to affect me? I don't think so. But then in the moment, it doesn't affect me. But then later on, I might think about it again. Might be there a little bit more.
No, you kind of half mentioned this and said it didn't actually change your life. So, but has it given you pause to think about, oh, well, maybe I should do something about this, eat a little better, tell us about that.
Yeah, no, it's made me think about it, but again, haven't really changed or anything. And it's more a product of me just getting into the routine of the way that things go. We, Melissa and my wife Melissa and I run kids all day every day, and when we're done, usually it's at the end of the night and we go, oh, thank God they're all asleep. And then we sit on the couch and then I'm like, I should go get some gummy candy and some snacks. And I know I probably shouldn't, but I'm probably still going to do it because now we're watching our new show that we watch and we sit beside each other for the 25 minutes or a half hour before we go to sleep. And that's what we do. So I'd like to think that I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then run down to the gym for 45 minutes and do all that stuff. But in reality, I don't have it. I don't have it in me right now.
Now, have you thought about things that you could do that aren't leave your house and go to the gym and not, I mean, this is what we talk about all the time, but now you've expressed it as something you might want to consider if it was something you could squeeze into your lifestyle. Like maybe it's and I mean, this is stuff that we struggle with. And I've talked on the podcast about how I've got this new job in Fredericton and has actually impacted when I go to the gym and I'm feeling great about so much, but not going to the gym has really, had an impact. And I haven't checked, but I feel like I've put on a little bit of weight and I'm not feeling good about it. And so I talked about it on the podcast here, but trying to make myself go for a walk every day at lunch. Yep. Doesn't have to be a big walk. But just the act of doing something, have you considered that sort of thing?
Yeah, since March of this year, I've now moved branches. So I was managing out in Hampton, which is a half-hour drive away, to now I manage a branch that's a 5 to 7 minute walk away. So I have been walking to and from work, walking to work, walking home for lunch, walking back to work, and walking home. So I'm getting a little bit more movement in that way. Another thing that during the summertime, it's a little bit easier because you're able to get out a little bit more. But going with the kids to the park, and instead of just driving to the park, which is a 5 minute walk away, we walk there, we run around. I'm picking kids up. I'm doing that sort of thing. I'm trying to be more involved from that perspective, because that's a lot of work after thinking about it. And it's actually a good friend of mine, Jeremy, who's, I was talking to him. I was like, I don't know. Do I get a gym membership? Do I really have to focus on changing the way that I eat? And he's like, if you're picking your kids up and you're running around and you're just like moving more, that's enough if you're going to do it consistently. Now, as winter sets in, it becomes a little bit more challenging. But I think that, as the summer was dying down, I was spending more time outside doing that type of thing, or trying to at least. So I wouldn't say giant changes, but just kind of thinking about when I could be moving a little bit more as opposed to not.
Right.
Yeah. And we talk about that all the time. It's not necessarily about going to the gym every day, but just finding something to keep you active for spurts of time, and maybe making other changes to make sure you at least feel healthy. That's kind of one of the biggest things for us, right?
Yep. No, and I would say it's I helped Melissa with a craft sale that we did last week, and helped set it up, tear it down, move chairs, set tables, moved all that, and I didn't feel as gross as I had. I would say even 6 months ago when I was helping do a different sale that she had done. So it's little things that you'll notice. But again, I am not in great shape by any stretch of the imagination.
Listen, none of us are.
You're trying.
That's the key, is to try.
Yep.
But I think we're going to wrap this episode up. Nigel, do you have any closing words you would like to tell the people? Or do you have somewhere on the internet people might want to look you up?
Well,
I know you don't really have an internet presence.
No, I'm presentless. I've got my own personal Facebook, Instagram, and a LinkedIn profile. I don't do a show. That's why I think it's cool to get asked to come on these things. I've done a couple web shows with Jonathan Torrens. They're featured on honestmoney.ca. They're the Your 2 Cents episodes that are found on YouTube. And I've got a show actually that's coming out tomorrow, which is Pickle Planet's podcast. And I did one on finance with them and Rogers TV. So that one's going to launch tomorrow. It'll be on YouTube actually.
Tomorrow being Monday. So 2 days ago when everyone hears this one.
In the past. It's already come out. Sorry, I broke the fourth wall.
Listen, we've already done that.
We do that all the time.
What about you, Caitlin? Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me at Fat Caitlin on TikTok, at the Caitlin Dean on X, Caitlin Dean on the Facebook, and we're Kate and Isaiah Living Large on Facebook.
And I'm at Maritime Brews on all the social medias. Like we said, we've got our third mic now, but we'll keep the Buy Me a Coffee up. Next purchase is going to hopefully be a nice new camera for us to improve our video quality. And for those of you listening on the Spotify's and Apple Musics and all that stuff, you can come on over to YouTube and watch the video of us having a great old time. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you could like, comment, and share and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. It goes a long way. But until next week, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.